Good evening and welcome to our ordinary meeting of Lithgow City Council for the 24th of April 2023. Lithgow City Council acknowledges Wiradjuri elders, past, present, of the Wiradjuri Nation, the original custodians of the land on which Lithgow's community resides. The Council also extends our respects to our neighbouring nations and to everyone past, present and emerging. Thank you. Declarations of webcasting. I inform all those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast and that those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Councillor Goodsell will be here shortly, so we have all councillors present. Apologies? Any apologies? No. As I said, Councillor Goodsell will be here shortly. Declarations of interest this evening. Anybody with a declaration of interest? Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council on the 27th of March 2023. Could have somebody move their correct, thank you. Councillor Goodwin, have a seconder, thank you. Councillor Bryce, thank you.
Actually, I'd like to speak to it.
Yes, certainly, Councillor Marnie.
I'm not going to support the confirmation of minutes. There was a matter which I don't think was dealt with within the meeting in regard to our Code of Meeting Practice in relation to a point of order that I brought forward. There failed to be a ruling on it, and it was the incident as the meeting became disrupted. Councillor Leslie left the room. I raised a point of order in regard to the behaviour of councillors. There was no ruling on that, and in fact the matter then proceeded to move to another councillor. So I've had a situation, I've spent much of the last 6 months talking to people about our standards and our behaviour and the diminishing respect people have for us as a council. They base that on our behaviour, they base that trust in our ability to make decisions on their behalf based on our behaviour. And unfortunately, I'm not willing to confirm the minutes of the last meeting as that matter was not appropriately dealt with under the Code of Meeting Practice.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie.
You just put the motion.
I'll put the motion and all those in favour say aye. Yes, yes. Councillor Bryce, Councillor... Carried. Yeah, carried. I'll have a division, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Against? Councillor Leslie and Councillor Marnie. Thank you. Commemorations and announcements. A very important commemoration announcement this evening. On behalf of Lithgow City Council, I would like to recognise and respect an ex-mayor of Lithgow City Council, Joe McGuinness's passing. To his wife and family, our sincere sympathy extended to you all. Joe served approximately 18 years on Lithgow City Council, which is certainly a tribute to his work in the Lithgow City Council area. So our best wishes to his wife and family now that they've endured the passing of their father and their husband. Thank you. Public forum. This evening we have two people wishing to speak on the telephone tonight in support of a notice of motion. Mr. Gurney is going to address that now. Thank you. The first speaker will be Bridie Zors, and she's going to be talking about the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Via phone. Thank you. Thank you, Bridie. You're going to be on live streaming and speakerphone now. Commence when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Bridie Zors. I'm a proud Wiradjuri woman who grew up in Lithgow. I've since moved to Bidjigal land to study, however my home address is in Lithgow and I regularly come back to see family. In 2021, I, alongside Bridget Thalma, briefed Council on the Uluru Statement from the Heart and was successful in getting both Council and Lithgow Youth Council to support the statement. Since 2021, I have continued to advocate for the Uluru Statement as a member of the Uluru Youth Dialogue. I am here today to talk in support of Councillor Goodwin's motion, in support of the Uluru Statement and a First Nations voice to Parliament. The Uluru Statement was born after a series of 12 regional dialogues in 2016 and 17 that asked First Nations peoples what constitutional recognition meant to them. These dialogues were made up of people chosen by the local and regional communities. Each dialogue elected delegates to then attend a national convention held at Uluru in May of 2017, where each regional dialogue's preferences were read out and consensus on what was wanted was reached. 250 delegates signed the statement, which calls for a First Nations voice to Parliament enshrined in the Constitution, as well as Makarrata, which is comprised of treaty processes and truth-telling. Since this historic consensus at Uluru, we have continued to see the support in the First Nations community on this issue, with independent research undertaken this year showing 80% of First Nations peoples support a voice. This upcoming referendum is a crucial moment in this country's history. It's an invitation for non-Indigenous Australia to walk with us for a better future for our children and the generations that follow. By giving grassroots First Nations people a say on the laws and policies that are made about us and our issues, we are able to ensure they are properly informed, which will result in better and more effective laws and policies, which in turn ultimately lead to better outcomes in a variety of different ways, such as healthcare and criminal justice. We need to have a seat at the table to ensure decisions that are made will produce better outcomes for mob, and we need the voice to be constitutionally enshrined to ensure it cannot be abolished at the whim of whatever government is in power. Lithgow Council were one of the first, if not the first, Central West Council to support the statement in 2021, which led the way for other councils, such as the Blue Mountains in 2021 and Orange more recently, to support the statement. Now you have a chance to publicly reaffirm that support and show the community that you understand the significance of this moment and the incredible impact having an enshrined voice can have. I look forward to seeing how this motion progresses. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridie. Thank you. Our second speaker tonight is going to be Bridget Karma on the same subject.
Oh, hi Bridget, it's Ross Burney from the Council. I would like to address the council meeting public forum now. Okay, I'll just put you on speakerphone and hand the phone to the mayor.
Hello, Bridget. You're on speakerphone at the moment and being live streamed. So when you're ready, you go ahead with your statement. Thank you.
Yuradumarang Yuandu. My name is Bridget Thalma and I'm a proud Wiradjuri Yinna woman who was born and raised in Lithgow and whose family have been living in Lithgow for generations. I want to acknowledge country and Wiradjuri elders, those that have paved the way for us younger ones to have more opportunities than they had. I have no other choice than to move off country in 2014 in order to pursue a law degree at UNSW on Bidjigal country, graduating in 2019. I continue to live, work and raise my family on Bidjigal lands, but I'm fortunate to have strong connections to Lithgow and come home to country and bring my son home to country regularly. I'm speaking in support of Councillor Goodwin's motion in support of the Uluru Statement from the Heart and a First Nations voice to Parliament that Australians will vote on later this year. In 2021, Bridie Zors and I briefed the Lithgow Council on the Uluru Statement from the Heart and its calls for voice, treaty and truth. We were successful in getting both Council and Lithgow Youth Council's support. I began working with the Uluru Dialogues, led by Auntie Pat Anderson and Professor Megan Davis, who hold the mandate of the Uluru Statement from the Heart, in March 2019. In December 2019, I and Cobble woman Alira Davis held the Uluru Youth Summit and created the Uluru Youth Dialogue, of which Bridie is a member of. We are young First Nations peoples from across this country who believe and advocate for the reforms called for by the Uluru Statement from the Heart to be implemented. I want to acknowledge the work of the dialogues, and every time they got no for an answer, despite the many no's they have received, they continue to advocate for this. It is First Nations leaders in communities across the nation that have continued to progress the call for a voice, despite the many pushbacks, and are the ones who have allowed Australians to have this opportunity to vote in an extremely important referendum. You've heard from Bridie on where the mandate of the Uluru Statement comes from. 12 regional dialogues and a First Nations Constitutional Convention at Uluru in 2017. It consulted over 1,200 First Nations peoples who were asked what meaningful constitutional recognition meant to them. Their answer revealed an overwhelming consensus, a First Nations voice to Parliament enshrined in the Constitution. The voice is essential for Australia to do better, because as a country, we cannot continue doing what we have done to address First Nations affairs every year, failing when the damning statistics are released. We cannot continue to face the issues that we face as First Nations peoples. We want a better future where our children can thrive rather than survive, where they can live long, healthy and happy lives on healthy country that is cared for by people who have the expertise, knowledge, and where our kids have access to education and healthcare in a culturally appropriate way. The voice is about addressing disadvantage and closing the gap. It is a substantive structural reform that respects the Parliament and democracy. The Voice proposal is about recognising First Peoples and our unique cultural and political existence on this continent through establishing a voice in the Constitution. The proposed amendment is practical and modest. It is legally sound and constitutionally sound. In establishing a voice for First Nations peoples in the Constitution, we will be providing a mechanism by which grassroots First Nations voices can be heard on laws and policies that affect us. We have lived the experience. We have the expertise, knowledge, and the solutions. The voice will allow politicians to make informed decisions, resulting in better informed laws and policies, resulting in better outcomes. For too long, top-down government policies have failed to achieve the positive outcomes. The referendum gives us an opportunity to take a different approach that will ensure better outcomes for First Peoples and saying yes to a substantial structural reform. The Council should be proud that it was one of the first councils west of Sydney to publicly support the statement. I want to emphasise, though, that whilst this motion to reissue support is important, the real work begins when you bring the community of Lithgow along on the journey. As members of the Uluru Youth Dialogue, Bridie and I have began having conversations across Lithgow and across the community to have a community-driven informed sessions on the voice where the community can have access to factual information. I hope to work further with the community of Lithgow to ensure its constituents are informed leading up to the voice referendum. Mandangulu, thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Speakers not registered for public forum will have an opportunity to now, as there is time has permitted this, if anyone would like to speak on the business paper this evening. Thank you. No. I registered, but you don't have me on. No, you're welcome to speak. Thank you.
Speaking in relation to the stage 2 of the Lithgow Heritage Grant, Okay, cool. I'm speaking in relation to the stage 2 of the Lithgow Heritage Grant that was being funded by the New South Wales Government. I applied for this grant in October 2022. I never received any confirmation on my application, so I had to ring and confirm that they'd received it. And I've been informed they received it. Months went by and I hadn't received any notifications regarding the grant. I checked with another Lithgow resident that also applied and they also didn't receive anything. I rang council in March 2023 and was told that I'd not been successful. I was curious why my application hadn't been successful, and the graduate planner continued to read out all the criteria, all of which I met. I then asked to know who did receive the grants and was told that information is not to be made public. Does council realise that all the applicants filled out forms, took photos, got quotes, and believe me, it wasn't easy getting quotes from tradesmen during, so busy. And then just to be forgotten about, absolutely zero correspondence regarding this grant to all the applicants, or at least me and someone else. I then sent an email dated 9th of the 3rd, 2023, requesting more information, and I still haven't received a response. That's like almost 2 months. Will the council let all the applicants know which buildings were successful with the Stage 2 grants? Now, I'm not asking for private details. I just want to know the buildings that were successful. That's the question. Will council let everyone know?
Mr Evangelista, I'll get Mr McGrath to speak on that. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. Yeah, I don't have any knowledge of this. I'm sorry. I'll have to find out what's gone wrong, if something has gone wrong with the process, and get back to you. So if I could get your details prior to the end of this meeting, please.
Okay, I'll send you an email.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd be interested to know the answer to that question as well.
I'm sure Mr McGrath will return after Anzac Day with an answer for the people attending tonight and those who are viewing tonight. Thank you. Our next item tonight, item 8, Merrill Minute. There is not a Merrill Minute tonight. However, this has been included as a staff report in closed council due to the confidential nature of the matter. So we'll move straight on now to 9 on page 5. Thank you. Notice of motion, Councillor Darryl Goodwin. Support the voice to Parliament. Could I have somebody move this, please? Councillor Goodwin. Have a seconder, thank you.
I'll second it.
Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodwin.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. My notice of motion is that Lithgow City Council, 1, acknowledges the importance of a voice for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in the Australian Parliament. 2, supports the Uluru Statement from the Heart and call for a constitutionally enshrined voice to Parliament. Number 3, recognises the long history of the disposition, discrimination and marginalisation experienced by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and the ongoing effects of its history on their lives and communities. Number 4, believes that the establishment of a voice to Parliament is a necessary step towards achieving meaningful reconciliation and addressing the ongoing issues faced by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. And number 5, calls on the members of Parliament to support the establishment of a voice to Parliament and to work towards ensuring that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have meaningful say in the decisions that affect their lives and communities.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce.
I'd like to foreshadow an amendment motion, but just to speak on this, I think it's very important that we enshrine the voice in our constitution. It can't be taken away. It has to be solid, rock solid. We've had councils, we've had committees, we have had all sorts of stuff, and it depends on the government that's in power whether it exists or has been carried on. So this is a good way to make sure that we work with our Indigenous people and give them the voice they need.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Coleman.
Yes, Mayor Statham, I would like to speak. Thank you. I would firstly like to congratulate Councillor Goodwin for bringing this forward. Some might say that you're playing politics, but I would refute that accusation. I think this is a great thing coming forward. In management's comment, it states very clearly from Local Government New South Wales, Council is the closest level of government to the community. And we can be instrumental in the campaign and are well placed to build support for the referendum. It is important that we consult with local Aboriginal Land Council and local Aboriginal committees and corporations. I personally have been seeking local Indigenous thoughts on the matter. A local businesswoman who is also proudly Indigenous said to me, "I'm in the yes camp. Definitely a positive step forward. How could it not be?" A local elder said to me, "It is definitely a step that we as a country need to take." I'm in the yes camp. I hope Lithgow Council is in the yes camp.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce, did you want to foreshadow an amendment?
I'm happy to speak to the original motion.
All right, thank you, Councillor Goodsell.
So I fully support and acknowledge the importance of a voice for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in the Australian Parliament. And I'd like to also thank Councillor Goodwin for bringing this before Council tonight. Although I didn't get to listen to Bridie, I have a firm understanding of what she was going to speak to, and I did get to listen to Bridget, our very own First Nations people who did bring the Uluru Statement from the Heart of Voice Treaty Truth to Council in 2021. And in public forum tonight, I would have felt inadequate offering any commentary. Tonight I needed to listen. So thank you for not attending, but for speaking online, Bridget and Bridie, and thank you for reaching out directly to me. Your continued representation on behalf of your people allows us to take further steps to ensure your voice is heard and consulted with. Mungungu, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Leslie?
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Normally, motions and amendments are debated at the same time. I'm not quite sure what Councillor Bryce is doing. If Councillor Bryce has an amendment, she could do it. If she hasn't, then yes. I have one. But I'm happy to wait for Councillor Bryce's amendment if there is one.
All right, thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Bryce, would you...
Sorry, Councillor Leslie, I'm a little bit uncertain of how this works. Okay, so my amendment is that to recognise the importance of First Nation people and their connection to country, the Environmental Committee, that we actually add a position there just for a First Nation person to be on the committee. We deal with a lot of... Is that fair enough to add a person?
I think it's a different conversation.
No, it's not. I seek advice on this, and this is the way I was told to do it.
So actually, what your amendment is, Councillor?
No, number 6.6.
You're going to add a dot point? Yes,
yep,
that's correct. And your dot point, would you like to speak clearly about the dot point now?
The dot point is to ensure that we have somebody on the Environmental Committee that is from the First Nation.
Councillor Goodsell, are you willing to accept that on your... add to that to your motion?
Yes. Yes. I don't. I think having a First Nations person on the Environmental Committee would be advantageous. So I'm happy with that, but it may probably... Yeah, I'm happy with that.
All right, thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Coleman, you have spoken. Are you happy to add that to...
I just had concerns in regards to the amendment. I didn't quite understand what Councillor Bryce was getting at, but now I understand.
Good, good. And you're happy to accept that?
It's not my motion, Mayor. It's
yes,
up to
but
me.
I don't want to have to go backwards and forwards. So
yeah, I have no issue. I have no debate in regards to this.
All right,
issue.
thank you. Councillor Leslie, would you like to speak now?
Yes, I'd also like to move, now that's been incorporated, I'd like to move a point 7, which is that point 7, congratulate Andrew G on his principled stand in resigning from the National Party on this issue.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Any other speakers?
That's an amendment.
An amendment? I've got to get a seconder for that, Councillor Leslie. Yeah. That's dot point 6. No seconder, so that lapses, thank you. So Councillor Mahoney, would you like to speak?
I don't know, talk to both, but I'll do my best. But the amendment, first up, look, support the amendment, Councillor Bryce. However, there is an argument to bring the same voice into a lot of other committees. So whether we want to look at a singular committee tonight about how First Nations voices are represented in our council, that's fine. But I could see that there's as much role to play in community development as there is in Environmental Advisory Committee. So perhaps could I suggest something, and I'm genuinely trying to help here, that we review our First Nation representation on all of our committees, and that we look for opportunities for that to occur. And if there's logical ones that immediately come to mind, I'm not.
Excuse me, Councillor
Yeah.
Marnie. Look, we've got to keep on topic. We're just
Well,
talking at the moment now
I'm
about
talking
Councillor
to the
Goodwin's
amendment.
notice of motion.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying, but there's probably another way that you can do that. It's not, at the moment, we have to keep on topic. We're discussing at the moment Councillor Goodwin's notice of motion. Now that point six has been added.
The problem I have is I have an amendment in front of me.
Yes, certainly.
And I'm trying to deal with the amendment. I acknowledge the good faith that the amendment's brought forward. I don't know that tonight was the night to deal with it. I felt we probably should deal with the voice first.
I did suggest that, and I've been overruled. So the General Manager has given Councillor Bryce some mentoring on this, and Mr Gurney actually realises this. The most important thing is Councillor Goodwin has accepted to put point 6, it's not really an amendment, it's point 6 on his notice of motion. Therefore, it's not an amendment, it's just an added dot point. So it's not changing anything else.
That's okay.
So are you happy with that, Councillor Marnie?
I'll leave it. I think we need to revisit the other issue.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Yes, couldn't agree more.
Okay.
But it is definitely a separate issue. Councillor Goodwin?
Mayor Statham, I think I might withdraw my support for that amendment and bring it to a different forum or a different motion at a different time. I apologise for that.
That's all right. I'm happy with that.
To
The councillor's happy with that.
consider all
I
committees.
think it's more appropriate myself
That's what
as well.
I was thinking when
Yes.
I was a bit.
All right, so Councillor
so-
Goodwin has spoken. We're now after Councillor McGee. Would you like to speak on that? Yes, I'm very happy for you to speak to the original motion.
Look, I'll take a slightly different pathway. I'll try not to spend too much time here, but I just want to talk to the influence of First Nation voices in my life. And I came to this country as a migrant. I came as part of a migrant family in the 60s, and we grew up in Western Sydney, southwestern Sydney, and for me there was no Aboriginals amongst us, because when we went to school we learned about the state boundaries, we learned about federation, and we learned the river systems, but we didn't practically have any input on the history of the First Nations people in this country. And it wasn't until I was a kid later on, when I was going to football and ran into Arthur Beetson, a front rower for Eastern Suburbs, who was the first Indigenous person to captain an Australian side. Now, Arthur was someone who won my trust and my respect, and when as a teenager he started talking to First Nations issues, he started to open my eyes to what I wasn't seeing around me, because it wasn't present. When we moved to Alice Springs and my wife worked in Aboriginal health, I then did cultural training with working with the Pitjantjatjara and Arrarunta people and the Warlpiri people. And again, their voices informed me of their connection to country, their culture and their language. And this has progressed throughout my working life, whether it's through the late John Lennis, who taught me a lot about cultural landscapes, and currently in the organisation I work for has appointed a First Nations team, and they co-manage the first Aboriginal place in New South Wales that was declared. I thank very much Councillor Goodwin for bringing forward his notice of motion. I see the voice as full of opportunity, and I go into it with a lot of goodwill and good faith. I don't see it for the risks that other people see it. The young women who spoke quite rightly that it's constitutionally sound. We look across our other countries as part of the colonial period of the British Empire. We look at Canada and New Zealand and the Indigenous people of those countries and their interplay with their parliamentary systems. I'm very confident that this will only bring benefit to this country, and I'm very happy to support Councillor Goodwin's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor McGee.
Yeah, I'd just like to speak to the motion. It's a fantastic motion, and I think it can't be stressed enough the importance of on the environmental side of the Aboriginal voice in Parliament. I went for the walk for Peace and Healing with Uncle Kevin Buzzacott in the year 2000, and fully oaked at the at Kurnell, where the first landing was. And the main reason for that walk for peace and healing was treaty and truth, as the ladies who spoke very well mentioned before, but also to stop the uranium mines in South Australia. And, you know, they just continued to roll on, and there was nothing that we could do about it. So I just hope that this voice in Parliament could be useful for something like that.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Any other speakers?
Yes, I'd like clarification if I could.
Yes, certainly.
I understand that Councillor Goodwin has withdrawn his support for the amendment moved by Councillor Bryce, but has that amendment now lapsed because Councillor Bryce is no longer moving it, or because you've ruled it out of order? But at the moment,
no,
that issue is still, has not yet been resolved.
Happy to deal with that. Councillor Goodwin suggested he would lapse that to another day. Councillor Bryce nodded and said that she was fine. There was no other discussion on that, and I didn't think it was worth putting a motion to see who agreed with that. Councillor Goodwin was fine with that. It was Councillor Goodwin that was going to be the person that would make that decision, nobody else in the council. So you're happy with that, Councillor Goodwin? Yes, thank you. Councillor Goodwin, right of reply, thank you.
A voice to Parliament's a vital step towards empowering Indigenous people, promoting reconciliation and ensuring their meaningful participation in decision-making processes. It would help address historical injustices, promote inclusive democracy and align with international human rights standards. I believe by supporting a voice to Parliament, Australia can take a positive step towards fostering a more equitable and inclusive society for all Australians.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Carried.
Mayor, I was just going to please ask a question. I was late due to work commitments. I couldn't possibly have left any earlier than 7 p.m. tonight, and I wanted to speak to the previous meeting minutes. Is that time lapse now, or you'll indulge me in that?
Just repeat that, Councillor Goodsell.
I just wanted to speak to the minutes of the previous meeting that were adopted earlier in the meeting before I arrived. Too late to do that now?
It is, but was that to do with a point of order?
No.
I don't know. The General Manager will have to rule on that because it already has been dealt with.
It's your call. You can rule. You don't have to accept it.
Look, it has been ruled on, and there was a complaint about the minutes, so they're going to be overlooked. They're going to be looked at again for something that was overlooked at the time. I will indulge and I will let you come up, speak, but it probably would not go down well with the other councillors, I don't believe. There is a time to start the meeting. I'm certainly allowing you as much leeway as I can, but that has been discussed. It's been moved, it's been seconded. It would be very wrong of me, I believe now. Yeah, so no, I think that will have to, I don't think it's appropriate to go back. Thank you. Staff reports, page 7, item 10, 10.1, General Manager's report. Have somebody move this, please.
Happy to.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Goodsell.
Council's had a recent briefing on this planned organisational structure, and I'm happy to endorse, as I trust the leader of our organisation to get his team right moving forward. I would also like to acknowledge the hard work of our executive leaders, Matt Trapp, Ross Gurney, Jonathan Edgecombe and Michael McGrath, who have all taken on additional responsibility with the loss of, in our recent structure, with the loss of the Director of Economic Development and Environment. And just briefly, I would also like to take this opportunity to personally thank Mr McGrath for his contribution to our local government and his counsel to myself over the last 6 years. He will be sadly lost as a wealth of knowledge and experience in local government and a calm and considered presence in our organisation. Thank you, Mr McGrath. I'll certainly miss you, and I wish you and your family all the very best in the future. But happy to endorse the
Thank you,
the
Councillor
organisational
Goodsell. I'm
plan.
sure we all condone that. Well said. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I can't really add too much Councillor Goodsell has said. She basically said what I was really going to say. But I would like to say personally to Mr McGrath, I wish you all the best. Good luck in your adventures. I think it's important that we advertise as soon as possible for that role because they've got big shoes to fill. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anyone else? Councillor Marnie.
Briefly, support the report, and I know a lot of work's gone into it. I reiterate the statements of both councillors are made in regard to our executive leadership team. Having worked in big organisations, this is a very small team doing a lot of work, and the fact that we also do sewer and water supply to this city is significant. It's delivered out of such a small group of staff. The elements I'm most concerned about is that we have a strong focus on our asset management and service management planning, that we get those fundamentals right, and that we also have a strong focus on the economic development role. To me, they're the big challenges facing this city, and I've seen the evidence that this is heading in the right direction, and I applaud the work that's gone on, and I'm happy to support the structure with that acknowledgement that Councillor Goodsell made, that there is a significant body of work that's undertaken by these four individuals, and I'd also like to extend my thanks to you, Michael, on your work and all your work in community development particularly. Thank you.
Well said, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Leslie.
I actually have two questions. The first one is, where is the General Manager? At the beginning of most meetings, we have apologies, and there was no apology for the absence of the General Manager, and I think that the members of the gallery and councillors should be advised of his absence. I understand. I know where he is, but it's not clear to the people actually watching. And the second question I have is, where is the council in the process of replacing Mr McGrath?
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Mr Gurney will speak to that. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Craig Butler, the General Manager, is currently on annual leave, and the recruitment process for the Director of People and Place, as I understand it will be titled, has commenced, and Mr McGrath will be with us a little bit longer than originally planned in the interim.
Thank you, Mr Gurney. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodsell, right of reply? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. Page 10, 10.2, People and Services Report. 10.21, Building and Development. Could I have somebody move this, please?
Happy to move.
Councillor O'Connor. And I think Councillor Marnie. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. It's from the building and development from state government, so it only helps anything that's got to happen. So,
thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Marnie. All right. Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Any other speakers?
Oh, I was just going to say that there's actually nothing to report. There were no variations to development standards. So,
yeah. Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. I'll put the motion. All those in right of reply, Councillor O'Connor.
No, happy with the recommendation.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll put the report. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. 10.31, Lithgow Emerging Economy Project LEAP Public Exhibition.
I'm happy to move.
Thank
you. Second.
Councillor Goodsell, seconder. I think I didn't see it. Righto. Councillor Coleman, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Statham. Look, I'm pleased that this report suggests a period of community consultation, including receiving and considerations of submissions. That's great. I think that's important. I'd like to just give kudos to Mr. Edgecombe. You've put a lot of work into this document and you deserve all your accolades coming to you, especially considering that it has come under budget, I believe, delivered within budget. So congratulations to you, Mr. Edgecombe, on that. What I'm really pleased about is what is mentioned in the report is that it's critical that all levels of government and the local community understand the potential magnitude of the impact to the local economy and employment in the event of mine and power station closures. The Liddell Power Station in the Hunter Valley closes this week. The Raring Power Station has been brought forward to close earlier than is meant to be. We're at critical stage here, and both the Mayor and I heard this at a meeting with Energy Australia only last week. They were discussing it there. So it is important that we engage both with Energy Australia and Centennial and Bampu, and that has occurred throughout this project, but we need to continue with that. A commitment to retrospective workforces and Lithgow community is absolutely vital. Workforce transition, initiatives to offset impacts possible, regarding energy projects, we have to keep on top of it. It's just the train is coming. We either get on or we get out of the way. This is happening. This will be the next steps will determine our path to deliver an emerging economic plan. I note that part of the report that Council will continue to engage directly with the Department of Regional New South Wales, which is so very important. We need to ensure that we aren't ignored by the new incoming government. This is absolutely crucial to our future. I also like the comment on page 15, Lithgow City Council's role will be to create a positive investment environment, including planning, working across all levels of government on policy and programs and engaging with the community to achieve social alliances. To me, that screams customer service, absolute customer service from the desk all the way through to middle management, all the way through. That it screams to me that we need to bend over backwards to support any new investment from the get-go. So I congratulate the council on this report, but we've still got a lot of work to do. I'm looking forward to seeing the submissions that come in from other stakeholders and opening it far and wide. We need to bring everybody on board. We need to ensure that we, Lithgow, is not left behind.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Goodsell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'll just reiterate on a lot of what Councillor Coleman has already said. This is a very long, complex and convoluted document, but also a very vital document. And tonight the recommendation is only to place this on public exhibition and bring back a report to council, and I'll speak to it more. I just got something briefly to say. I'd invite all to view the plan and to understand the needs and opportunities transitioning from coal industries, traditional coal and power industries presents for our community. For many years we've all heard over and over, we need to grow, we need to attract industry. We are placed in an ideal location with available road and rail infrastructure in this document and its related action plan focus areas, and the attached short, medium and long-term actions are most welcome. Actions is the biggest word. They're measurable and they can be seen. You can't just attract industry and transition traditional workforces and communities away from coal without a significant plan. This document is the culmination of 2 years of hard work involving many tiers of government and the private sector to identify and ensure economic development and our community's resilience. The outcome will be the deliverables for our community, as all levels of government have been part of the consultation process and the planning of this document. I'd like to also thank Mr. Edgecombe for embracing this additional role of his. It's all come together, it's understandable. I've just got a couple of questions. So we need something plain and simple to go to the community. Not plain and simple, I'm not saying the community are plain and simple, but this is a massive document that needs to be summarised, and it looks like it's on the bench in front of us today. Thank you. Didn't see that one. And also, Mr. Edgecombe, through you, Mayor, after we adopt this, after we send it out, we get submissions back, we adopt it as a council, then it goes to the state government for adoption. Is that correct?
Mr. Edgecombe, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, that's correct in a sense. The process of endorsement and adoptions occurs simultaneously, I guess. With a new state government having been elected, there is a fair bit of work ahead of them, so it might take a bit of time for them to review and endorse the LEAP document, but it is a collaborative piece of work, so it is contingent, and we hope very much to continue engaging with the state government and for their endorsement of the plan, and to keep working with us over the next 10 years, which is the range of time expected for our regional transition.
Just one more question through you, Mayor, if I may.
Yes, certainly.
So this document adds a lot of clout. So this isn't just us going off half information, putting in for grants that we don't know if they're going to be successful. These departments have worked with us on this plan, so the outcomes are going to be much more achievable.
Mr. Edgecombe?
That's absolutely correct. The document proposes over 80 separate actions, several of which have already we've commenced making progress on, particularly an application under the New South Wales Government's Growing Regional Economies Fund, which looks to be significant and is exciting work as well. So as much as it is a collaborative piece of work, we're not wasting any time. We're making headway now, and we'll hope to continue that momentum over the coming years.
Sorry, one more. What will the outcome be if we don't get that big injection of funds from the SRV application?
Mr. Edgecombe?
It will hurt our internal capacity to deliver economic development initiatives, but it's not the end of the story. We will just need to increase our focus on external grants and resourcing of similar projects.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Anybody else? Councillor Bright?
I believe that this LEAP document is one of the most important documents that Lithgow City Council has seen for the last 50 years. In 2011, Balbone closed. In 2013, we've seen Angus Place shutter and Wang close, Wang Powerhouse. We lost all those industries and we still kept chugging along, hoping for the best. It is good now that we are addressing these issues where the coal mines are closing and the powerhouses are going to close. We need other industries, we need another focus, we need to keep people in town. When you look at the census, we lost 2% of our population. We are losing young people, young professional families out of Lithgow. We need to be able to retain them for our future. I had a quick look at this document that Mr. Edgecombe put out. It's very simple, it's straight to the point. I think it's going to be well received by our community, and from our community I hope there is a lot of submissions. I hope people make the effort to read this document as it is vital to our future.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee?
Yes, I think it's just fantastic to see something tangible for all of those information sessions, all of the work, all of the the lot of time that the majority of the councillors have put into this. The majority of us have just been there session after session after session, and I just think it's fantastic for the community to be able to see something tangible for all of that effort. So there's the short version, and then there's a slightly longer version. Will that be available to people from the public to pick up a hand, or will that be online?
Mr. Edgecombe?
Through you, Mayor Statham, it's a good question. The community consultation, if it's endorsed by the council, will start immediately. There'll be media releases and the like. The longer form document is going to be roughly around 30 to 40 pages, so I wouldn't think that we'll print that for every resident in the community. It's likely going to be something that's downloadable online and people can interact with at their leisure. But that short form document is developed as it is, so that we can arrange for a mass mail out, so that to engage with as many people across the community. Because I will come to this with some mea culpa. We haven't engaged as deeply and as widely as we would have liked. But to date, this plan has been just heavily focused on inputs, academic involvement from universities and the like. It has been quite a lengthy process, but we'd like to make up for that now. And we have a detailed communications plan, which I think is also attached to the business paper, and we're looking forward to speaking with the community, business leaders, and government more directly regarding the project.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. And may I suggest that a couple of copies of the original document be left at the library, or a library, Portland, Wallerawang and Lithgow. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodwin?
Through you, Mayor Statham, I'd like to ask Mr. Edgecombe, is this a long enough time? The recommendation is 28 days. Does that give residents long enough time to peruse the material, and a long enough time for council to get this material out from tonight to constituents or to the public?
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Mr. Edgecombe, thank you.
While we plan to engage for a period of 28 days, we aim to spend a bit of time after that continuing to engage with leaders across the community and spend some time analysing the results as well, which is why the results won't come to the May meeting, they'll come to the June meeting. However, if the council would like us to extend that process and give the community a bit more time, perhaps we could open it for 6 weeks rather than the 4, and open it up for, what would it be, 54 days, 52 days? Yeah.
Mayor Statham, sorry if I
42, 44, sorry.
Yeah, as the mover of the motion, I would like to change the period of 28 to 42, if that's accepted by the seconder.
Councillor Goodsell, are you happy with that? Everyone else happy with that that's spoken so far? Councillor Bryce? Yeah, all right. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. So that will change to 42 days, is that correct? Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. Anyone else wishing to speak, please?
Yes.
Councillor Marnie?
I won't speak to a lot of detail in it, but it is a very important piece of planning. I'll probably start from the end and work backwards, but I concur with where Councillor Goodwin was going as far as the period out there. This is one of a number of very complex plans we're putting out in front of the community. I think it's good to have that 42-day. Listening to Mr. Edgecombe's response, that I still think there may well be particular key players or industry groups that might get teased out during that 28-day that may need additional consultation with before we finalise the plan. So I'm noting that the health sector is very well represented in your consultative sort of group, so is the energy and mining sector. Reasonable amount of transport. The area I'd like to see a little bit more perhaps is around the tourism, and particularly some of the nature-based tourism, camping, caravanning, all those sort of groups, about where their industry sector fits into it. I'd also like to feel confidence that we've also got that small business connectivity into this plan. So I'm just a little bit concerned that we may not capture that within that very short time frame. So if there's an opportunity for some additional work with specific groups post the 42-day, that I'd appreciate that. I am interested in, and look, I can go down a rabbit hole, which I won't, but there's some industry sectors that will just form themselves not by our planning but by need. So the health sector is a clear one, which is just driven by acute and ongoing health needs, and it's being driven by our demographics. It's not we can plan all we like around that, but that's not going to change that. It's what we do with the high value stuff, and particularly when we start to lose high value jobs in the mining and power sector. The other thing I like to also have here as part of the consideration is the whole community wellbeing and livability stuff, which surrounds the participation of those high value workers. I interplay with those every weekend, and they're completely interwoven into our community life. So the risks are both economic, but they're also social, and we need to think about how we go forward with that. But as I said, look, I've got the inclination to end up down multiple rabbit holes with these sort of things, and I won't go there tonight, but I'll certainly provide some further feedback on it.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Yes. Councillor Leslie?
Yes, thank you. Documents should be accurate, and I draw the council's attention to the bottom of page 12 of the written business paper I have that has the word, importantly, the minimum legal notice of the closure of any power station is currently 5 years, and someone has gone through and written in 3.5 years. That's clear, but of course they missed the same 5 years on the third line of page 13. Now I've just checked what's online, and that change is not available online, and of course it should be, so that needs to be made accurate. It's quite a significant change, 3.5 years instead of 5. But I intend to vote against this motion because, as my personal protest, because I believe this whole program has been flawed, especially with the consultation. If you look at page 15.5, LEAP communication strategy. Now, to date, the following stakeholders have been engaged in the development of the LEAP. And there are 30 of them. And they cover a broad range of industry and hospitals and whatever. But what's missing? Can anyone pick it? No? What's missing is there's none of the Lithgow environment groups have been consulted. The Lithgow environment group's not there. The Lake Lyell group's not there. The group concerned about the process that the future protest about any incinerator is not there. And of course, when the report is done, after the consultation of these 30 people, it's written with that in mind and that view. That comes as part of the process that's done it. But no one is thinking, well, what about these other issues? What about these environmental issues? They've not been raised. No one's been talking to them. No one can say, well, yes, we spoke to them. We heard what they had to say, and we've written a report that includes those comments. They may have taken notice of the comments, or they may not. I'm not going to say that the report is. What I will say is the report has been written without that feedback, and as a result, I consider the report to be flawed, and I don't think it's right, and I intend to vote against the motion on that issue.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against this? Councillor Coleman, right of reply. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Statham. I'm going to bring it back to a comment that Mr. Edgecombe said, and he said, engage widely as we like. He'd like to expand. And that's the most important comment here, is the importance of expanding and talking to as many leaders across the community as we can, including those that Councillor Leslie has actually mentioned. That is absolutely vital that we get as much consultation across as many groups as we possibly can. This is going out for as the recommendation for 42 days. Hopefully, that group of 30 can be expanded on, and I believe that it can be expanded on, and I hope that we capture and butterfly net as many people as possible. I look forward to the report that's going to be prepared for future council meetings, acknowledging every single group that's already been mentioned here and many more.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. I'll call for a division. Thank you. All councillors apart from Councillor Leslie. Thank you. Is that correct, Councillor Marnie? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Carried. Page 18, 10.3.2, financial assistance request for a sporting representative.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
So move it. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Thank you, Councillor Goodman. Councillor Bryce.
There was no sporting committee just recently over the school holidays it was called for. We couldn't get a quorum. So this has not gone through the committee, but fully supported by the committee. It's a young fella that's swimming quite well. He's gone off to the Gold Coast, and wish him luck in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, no, nothing from me.
All right. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie?
Look, just again, this is something that I've always said this council has done well for a long time. He's supporting our community support and these sponsorships and donations towards it. This is where we let outstanding young athletes have an opportunity to compete in the elite level. So we help them on their pathways to that. So I'm very thankful on behalf of the sporting community that we do this because it gives great opportunities for young people.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak?
I just have
Councillor
a question.
Coleman?
Yeah.
Councillor Coleman?
Not in regards to the recommendation, I support the recommendation, but in regards to the sports committee, when are they meant to meet again? I understand that didn't happen recently. There was no quorum or something.
It was over
there. Through you, Mayor, through...
Yep.
It's not really something we need to discuss tonight. I'll get Trinity to send you the information, Councillor Coleman. Anybody else wishing to speak? Otherwise, right of reply, Councillor Bryce. Thank you.
The meeting was cancelled due to the fact it was going to be over the school holidays, so not last week, the week before. But this still came through and we wanted to deal with it outside of that meeting. Thank you.
Your right of reply, Councillor Bryce? Yeah. All right. All those in favour of the motion, thank you. Against? Unanimous, thank you.
Mr. Edgecombe would like to make a statement before the debate on the next item.
All right. Item 10.3.3, Walgan Valley Alternate Alignment Study. Mr. Edgecombe would like to make a remark on that. Thank you, or a statement. Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Just very quickly, as there was, we've heard very clearly from the community about the importance of appropriately phasing the Walgan realignment and construction process. So while it's not specifically mentioned in this report, we've engaged directly with WSP Golder, the preferred contractor for the work, and phasing of the construction is going to be specifically included in the design process so that we clearly understand the impacts to the existing alignment and potential impacts to the community and can engage with them in detail throughout the realignment process. So I just wanted to make that comment because it's not specifically borne out in the report, but it will be an important consideration as we move through the project.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. Could I have a mover, please?
I'll move it.
Councillor Bryce. Councillor
Happy to
Goodell?
second.
Councillor Bryce.
This is just basically an extension of the work we've already done down there. The alignment study will provide an alternate route and hopefully some confidence down there in the community that we are doing something to make it more permanent, something more permanent for them. And that's about it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodsell.
So obviously a lot of work is still being allocated to the Walgan Valley, which is demonstrated again in this report tonight. Well done to staff for getting this next step to us and more importantly to the Walgan community so quickly. We all know that time is of the essence. I endorse these next stages of identifying suitable realignment and hope the 26th week timeline is kept to as closely as reasonably possible. That will be a feat in itself for the residents of the Valley to be able to lead their normal personal and business lives. It's pleasing to see the donkey steps near completion and official opening coming up with all-weather access available. I've had a real interest in ensuring and representing the residents in this one to make sure they have access. And they're having an official opening. I received a notification that they're having an official opening, and it's just really, really unfortunate, and I hope it could be changed. I'm not sure what the residents of the Valley feel, but I guess they work during the day as well, so there's no way that many of us would be able to attend that opening in the middle of a Friday. So I'd just put it to them, maybe if they'd like it on a weekend. I'd certainly like it on a weekend because I wouldn't want to miss it, and at this stage I will. But great work on the report, Mr. Jonathan Edgecombe.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Anybody else wishing to speak on this?
Yes, thanks.
Councillor O'Connor.
Mayor. I'm just reading there about the tender for the design. I would like to have seen it go out to tender, but due to the speed of the works that has to be done, I think we can accept it. So, and I can't see anything wrong with the opening on the middle of the day. Nobody's going to go down there in the middle of the night. So if it's got to be open on that day, that's when it'll be open. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. I think the date's been to and fro, and I think this date now we've got to realise that council staff also don't work on a weekend. So this date I think it's going to be locked in. Jonathan Edgecombe might like to speak on that, but
Thanks, Marie. It's not locked in stone, but it is important that many of the contractors, for example, don't work on site. It's important we recognise them. WSP, Golder, Public Works Advisory, Public Works New South Wales as well, many of whom also don't work weekends. So I just want to make sure that we choose a date that best suits as many people as possible. And I'll engage with Councillor Goodsell and the rest of the council. If there is a date change that's required, we'll make that happen.
thank you, Mr. Edgecombe.
Sorry, Mayor. I didn't want to make a fuss. I just really wanted to go because I've been a big part of it.
Totally understand. Councillor Coleman.
I would support Councillor Goodsell's comments in regards to that. It's going to be difficult for me to attend as well. It is the date's not the problem for me. It's 10 a.m. in the morning. However, we'll do what's best for everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Bryce.
No, I'm right.
Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Leslie against. Carried, thank you. Carried, thank you. Wastewater reports, thank you. Introduction of curbside organics, better known
Happy
as
to move.
FOGO, collective
Happy to
service.
second.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman and Councillor Marnie.
Thanks, Mayor Statham.
Councillor Coleman.
The three biggest issues facing all levels of government: energy, housing and waste. I'm pleased that 87% of the respondents strongly support the introduction of the proposed FOGO services. This is a great thing to be doing. I understand that it has been made mandatory, however, we're moving ahead before that time needs to happen. Look, I can't speak highly of this service. I think that it's going to be great for the community, great for the environment. I think it's a really positive step. I do have a concern in regards to J.R. Richards, especially what happened over the lake at Wang. I do have concerns in regards to that. However, I will hopefully that doesn't happen again, and they will provide a service that needs to happen.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Marnie.
Just some very practical point of view. We're looking at trying to extract 65% of our waste out of the red bins. We're trying to extend the landfill lives. we're looking to save $157,000 in landfill costs. We've got very good, strong response from respondents, and look, the service is, I've got to say, is very reasonable at its costs, where we're starting at $10 to $20 a year and moving towards $50 for a waste service. The thing I'd like to see explored is whether there's opportunities for us to be starting to process green waste, and I'd like to see that as one of our income pathways, but also to have more of a closed local service. There is a whole mob of councils east of us that are going to have to, mandated by the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority, must have it in place by 2030. I appreciate the staff have got out early and don't let us get into that traffic jam of trying to get that service in place in the last 12 months. So I applaud the staff for getting out early and doing this planning and talking to the community. So I'm quite excited about this. This is how we divert waste out of landfill streams. So there's very little in my mind, and certainly in the minds of the people that have talked to me about it. And I look forward to it going as early as possible. So I'm understanding that it's a February date for next year. Okay, thank you. Okay, but
Thank you, Councillor Marnie.
Some really good work from the waste section, so thank you.
Other speakers, Councillor Bryce, thank you.
This has been a very exciting project and moving forward really well. In committee meetings, we've talked about the requirement of training, education of our community. We're still not that great at recycling, so we really need to reinforce all those messages out there and push forward with the education well prior to sending out the bins. It's so exciting, everyone's talking about it, and I'll be glad to see it happen.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anyone else wishing to speak? No? Right of reply. Oh, Councillor Goodsell.
Sorry. I think this is just another demonstration of another big ticket exciting item in our agenda tonight. The community feedback regarding FOGO was overwhelmingly positive. March 2024 will hopefully see the implementation of a new service for those receiving curbside waste service. If I could ask through you, Mayor, to Mr Trapp, when will a decision be made regarding the red bin, weekly or fortnightly?
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Mr Trapp, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, that would be left up to a small community consultation. We wouldn't be looking to make a decision on that until such time as the FOGO service was rolled out and people have time to get used to it, and then we can reassess our services based on community need and feedback.
Thank you. I just saw those percentages were very, very close in the surveys. We're mandated to introduce FOGO by the government by 2030, and I thank Nigel Campbell for his great work getting this off the ground so early, bringing us into line with many other regional councils in the area. I did have a pickup maybe for the recommendation was a bit of not a spelling error, an adjustment, maybe a typo. On page, on the table on page 26. No, that's not true. On the table on page 28, there's an additional FOGO service for $130, and I think in the recommendation it's listed as 120. That's just because I love maths and I love to go through things thoroughly, Mr. Gurney.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Yep, got it.
Apologies, Sarah and Trinita. So it's in dot point 2, where it's got mentioned the figure, endorse Endorse the funding arrangements for rollout and ongoing operational costs of FOGO service, including the introduction for a $50 per tonne commercial waste levy, $10 increase in addition to CPI and domestic weight charge, and $120 per service. That one needs to be changed to $130.
Thank you, Councillor Woodsell. Any other speakers? Right of reply, Councillor Coleman. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Thank you, carried. Finance report on page 34, 10.5. Could I have somebody move this report? Thank you.
I'll move it.
Happy to second.
Councillor Bryce.
Happy to go with the recommendation.
Councillor Goodsell.
I'm happy to endorse this in the interim, I guess, but it will be amended significantly once we hear back in regard to the special rate variation. So either if it's refused and we have a 3.7 rate peg, or if it's partially approved, all these documents will have to come back, and possibly the process of identifying the projects and services that will be cut. But I'm happy to approve it for now.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Anybody else wishing to speak to this? Councillor Coleman.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Statham. Just on page 39 of 51, under operational business cases, I note in the report that it states Ironfest sponsorship 20K or 20,000. Look, I'm really pleased to see that. On Saturday night, I was invited to a little gathering. Ironfest Festival Director McGregor Ross announced the dates for next year's Ironfest, April. The theme is Staying Alive, i.e. the 70s, and I'd hate to see it move away from Lithgow, so I'm really pleased to see that sponsorship noted, all going well. It is my understanding that they're interested in council covering site rental, waste management and traffic management. I just hope that we can secure a meeting with McGregor Ross as soon as possible in regards to that issue. That'd be really helpful. Otherwise, yeah, I have no problems with the recommendation, and as Councillor Goodsell said, it could change depending on what happens next month.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Bryce? No?
I'm right.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. 10.5.2 Investment Report, March 2023. Could I have somebody please move that report?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Bryce. Goodwin, sorry. Apologies.
Just
Councillor
go with the
Bryce.
recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Goodwin. Anybody
Same,
wishing to
thanks.
speak? If there's no dissent, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. Policies and Governance, 10.6.1, Council Conflict of Interest. Could I have somebody move this? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Leslie.
Happy to second.
Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Leslie, thank you.
I don't wish to speak to it. I think it stands for itself.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Goodsell? No, if there's no dissent. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. 11.1 Operations Committee meeting, and there's also some another two committees that I will speak to as well tonight. Could I have somebody move the operation minutes be accepted? Thank you.
Happy to.
Councillor McGee, have a seconder, thank you. Councillor O'Connor. Councillor McGee.
Yes, it was a good meeting, and we've got a bus stop coming with a bit of funding to the Portland Sunny Corner Road. So really good news, really good outcome there. It's going to be a much larger project than what we originally intended, but it's going to be a fantastic outcome for the people in that area. So.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you. Nothing to add. Just go with the recommendations.
Right. Anybody wishing to speak? Councillor Coleman.
Yeah, Yeah, thanks, Mayor Statham. Just touching on what Councillor McGee said, it states in number regarding the bus stop, and I would like clarification. It states here actively seek grant funding of.
That's correct.
Yeah, to undertake necessary improvements to Portland Seminary Service Lane to accommodate a formal bus stop. So has the funding been sourced, or are we still seeking it? Where are we up to in regards to that? Because my understanding from the statement that Councillor McGee said it's already happened or it's happening. So where are we at with that?
Mr Edgecombe, thank you.
Scope for the project and very basic designs have been drawn up. They form the basis of the report to the Operations Committee and subsequently now the Council. But we would need to seek grant funding and that hasn't commenced yet. So we're waiting on, there are several opportunities that come throughout the area. There's active transport and transport related funding. There's also the local roads and community infrastructure grants. So all of those will be brought through to the Council for endorsement of applications before they're made.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe and Councillor Coleman. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply? Councillor McGee?
Yeah, just that the bus stop is, on the way.
Hopefully.
I'm very confident that we'll get the funding for that. We'll get that through. It is on the way.
All right, thank you, Councillor McGee. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. (11.2) Appointment of ARIC member. Very important position for the council.
Happy to move.
Who said that? Councillor Coleman?
Me.
And a seconder? Councillor Bryce? Councillor Coleman?
I'm happy with the recommendation. This has to happen.
Thank you. Councillor Bryce?
Same.
Anybody wishing to speak? If there's no dissent, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. 11.3 is Community Development Committee meeting, the 11th of April 2023. Could I have somebody please move those minutes were correct?
I can't see that on the agenda.
Yes, they're two late items. The GM requested that they go through, if possible, as late items.
I'm happy to move. I was at that committee meeting.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Any dissent on that?
I just want to ask a question, if I may.
Yes, certainly.
I just note in the minutes that it says a request for council to stage a performance by Kamal at Portland Crystal Theatre. Do we know what happened with that, Mayor Statham?
There will be a report coming through in the next couple of days, I believe.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. 11.4 Crime Prevention Meeting, the 13th of February 2023. Could I have somebody please move those minutes?
I'm happy to move.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman and Councillor Bryce. Yes, Bryce, thank you. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Coleman?
No, that's
Councillor Bryce? There's no dissent. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Matters of great urgency.
I have one.
Councillor Bryce?
We're up at Clarence the other day on Saturday, for the community markets up there, and there was a mention that there's been a delay in the approval for the hall or getting construction certificates or something. Can we please see where that's at and get it back to us?
That is a matter of great urgency. I've already addressed that, but there'll be a report coming to councillors to keep them up to date as soon as possible. Thank you, Councillor Bright. Resolved to move into closed council to consider the confidential reports as listed on the agenda.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Thank you. So Councillor Goodsill, Councillor Bryce. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Carried.
through you, Mayor. Item 13.1, the resolution was that 1, the General Manager's employment contract be renewed for 4 years from 11 May 2023 to 11 May 2027. 2, a total remuneration package of $288,695 per annum, inclusive of compulsory superannuation, form part of the General Manager's contract renewal. And 3, Council authorises the affixing of the Council seal to the employment contract documentation.
And I'd like to have my name recorded as having
Certainly,
voted
Councillor
against
Leslie.
that motion.
Councillor Leslie voted against that motion. Thank you. Thank you, Mr McGrath. Thank you, councillors, for attending the meeting this evening. And it is 9:50, is that correct? 8:50, an early mark. Have a nice Anzac Day tomorrow, councillors. Thank you.